assisted devices. We have one more in case we need it. Try to. Yeah, they handle them over in DTN. So all we have to do is pass them out. I have to get the lady who has it.
One minute to air. We are now streaming.
Good evening. Happy Monday, everybody. I'd like to call the Durham City Council meeting to order for this, the 21st day of August, 2023 at 7 p.m. here in the city of Durham. We are happy to see so many faces who have joined us tonight in person in chambers, and we certainly welcome those who have joined us remotely as well. Let us have a moment of silent meditation before we take up the people's business for this evening. Thank you all so much. We'll now recognize Councilwoman Freeman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. It's our practice to stand and salute the flag if you're able.
All right, Madam Clerk, if you will call the roll.
Mayor O'Neill,
I am present.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton. Here. Councilmember Caballero. Here. Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Holsey-Hyman.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll look to my left for any announcements by colleagues. Councilwoman Holsey-Hyman.
Good evening. It's really good to see all our residents in the audience. To my colleagues, we've had a busy week. I know I have. I'm going to try to make it as fast as possible. But I will say that I had the honor to go out with Preserve Real Durham to the southeast Durham area and to really see the impact of all this building. And I want to also say that it does not just affect people saying, well, they just don't want people of color to move out there, or they just don't want certain people to move out there, because I met with older African-American people, I met with older white people, I met with young people, and just the level of damage that they showed me to their property was just outstanding. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the fact that they have, more than one person told me that they had tried to file a claim on their insurance to have these issues that happened with their blasting, and that the companies have told them that if they continue to move in the sense of filing it, that they would lose their insurance. And so I just know that the voting that we do here does make consequences to people, how it affects them, and I saw it firsthand. And I just wanted to say to those people who are dealing with this in terms of their property being damaged, in terms of their property can't even use their backyard because they're putting buffers up that are so high that they can't even put their animals to run in the yard, or their children. It was just astonishing to me. So I just want to also say that our voting has consequences, and it is affecting people at all economic and all backgrounds. So thank you for inviting me out there to see that. I also wanted to talk about Project 300, Sherrod Johnson, who had a wonderful event where he had so many sneakers for young kids coming out with their families. They had food, they had games, we had people from the city there, some of our other colleagues were there. And so he does this every year. And honestly, I want to also do a shout out because that was my student. He was my student as an undergrad at Shaw University, and just to see the blessings of what he's doing and giving back to the community makes my heart fond and good. I also want to talk about Progressive Holiness Church, that I was out there this weekend with Elder Christopher Lewis and Katrina Lewis, who basically were giving out backpacks and computers to kids. So they were really doing their thing. And also a couple of us here too were also able to go to the homecoming of Destiny Seabury, who was the 15-year-old young lady who was the babysitter of our little girl, Chloe, that was shot. And they had a homecoming, and the mayor also gave like a statement to her. And it was just so to see all the family wrap around her. She is a student at Jordan, 15, and when they asked her would she do it again, she said yes, that she would throw herself in front of a bullet for her family. And we need to take a lesson from that, because it's not just about us, but it's what we're doing to give back to the community and give back to one another. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to publicly appreciate all of the city employees, city workers who were out doing storm recovery work for us over the last week. Lots of folks in our community, experienced downed trees, trees on houses, blocked roads, and our staff were working nonstop for those first few days, making sure that our streets were clear, that our infrastructure was getting back where people needed it to be. So just want to thank all of our city workers who were a part of that effort, getting everything back online for our residents. Thank you.
Councilman Williams.
Thank you. I saw many of you, my colleagues and community members throughout the community at several events, so I'm sure all of those events are going to be mentioned. However, I wanted to really reiterate what Councilmember Johnson just stated. We have a lot of city workers that go unseen, and this was detrimental, what happened with the storm, and just wanted to uplift them and let them know that we appreciate them, we see them, and they kept us functioning as a community this over the past break with the storm, breaking electricity. So thank you. Also, considering the climate in which we've been functioning in this year, I want to really shout out Hillside High School band program and Southern Durham High School band program. I served as assistant director of bands at Hillside 2006 to 2010 and director of bands at Southern High School 2010 to 2014. And, we are arch rivals, those two high schools, in a fun way. But to see those kids come together this weekend, not only did Hillside bring over 300 alumni back to that stadium to support those kids, and it was a beautiful sight. The next day at the DPS Fest, they played together. And to see arch rivals join together and represent unity, I think that we have a lot of lessons that we can take from that as well. So kudos to our youth for leading by example, and I think it's something, it's a lesson that our entire community can learn from. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Looking to my right, see if there are any announcements on my right-hand side.
Thank you. I would just add a thanks to my colleagues for noting the storm recovery for our staff, and also just noting I was actually at the JFK Towers and when the lights went out, and I think that we've definitely got to do a deeper dive around what it looks like to address more than that one building, because I know there were others. And it kind of resonated with me in a different way, trying to figure out how they would get upstairs, and just being there, it was different. I did want to also say that it was a blessing to be in the space for Destiny's return, and that her cousin shared a wonderful poem, and how the arts has impact, just a healing impact for our community. And so I did share that on my Facebook page. If you want to read it, it is available. And I also wanted to thank Project 300 for the great RNS Sports, for the great news for those students who are returning back to school. Not only the backpacks and the sneakers, but just the haircuts, the braids, like all of that matters to kids who are going back who might not have had that. So yes, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to also extend gratitude to city workers last week and thinking about all the residents who lost power, and also Duke Energy workers who I know were working around the clock to get everyone's power back on. I also want to shout out our school teachers and educators because DPS, not the year-round, they started a little while ago, will begin next Monday, and we do not have council meetings next Monday. So good luck to all of our educators and DPS staff and kids. I wish you well, and I hope you all have an excellent year.
All right, I have a couple of announcements. Good evening again to everybody. I do want to start out with giving a shout out to the HEART team. I was able to go by and tour the Community Safety Department, which is actually located right around the corner from this chambers, and had a great time with them, spent a couple of hours with them. During the storm, right after the storm, the next day after the storm, we had planned for the tour, and so it was really good for me to get out and kind of see what they were doing up close and personal, and believe me, they have personal work that they're out there on the streets doing. So a shout out to Allison and Jessica who took me out, and there's some pictures on my Facebook page, I believe. I also wanted to remind everybody on August the 31st, we will have in this chambers a joint meeting for the comprehensive plan at 7 p.m. We'll have all 15 of us, I think, up here on the dais, along with our city managers. We had a prep meeting today, and just to let my colleagues know, we are asking, and you'll get a letter, an email from Ms. Young, who will basically kind of outline how that meeting is going to flow. It will be a public hearing, so we're expecting to have a lot of people come. We're going to try to address all of that. We have some plans to be able to have a discussion amongst ourselves, but because there's so many of us, if you have any questions that you can think of in advance, I think Vice Chair Commissioner Jacobs has already given a group of questions. If you could provide those to our planning department, you'll get a date by when in that memo from Ms. Young to kind of give them some heads up so they can prepare for that meeting. And then if we don't finish that night, they will also check in to see if you all have another date to try to coordinate all of our various schedules to be in place on that night. To our public, please come, be prepared to speak to us, to both the county commissioners and your city council as well. I also want to ask for a thumbs up for an appointment to the Gold Triangle Board. We had a resignation from Stephanie Williams, who it is a joint appointment between the chair of the county commissioners and the mayor. The county and recommended through Brenda, and I'm recommending to you all Patrick Hanna to fill that seat. I think Patrick has had some, Attorney Hanna, let me put it that way. He was a part of our transportation department, I believe, here in the city for a number of years. So Commissioner Howerton and I discussed that name. She brought it forth to her colleagues. They approved it at their last meeting. I'm asking if I can get a thumbs up for it to be placed on our agenda for Thursday so that we can get that approved and Attorney Hanna can take that seat. So, all right, Madam Clerk, we have a thumbs up for that. All right, with that being said, we'll move on to our next first order of business, which is our priority items, and I will recognize our city manager as such.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the Durham City Council. I have two items to bring to you this evening. First, agenda item number 15 is a construction contract with Eagle Solar and Light LLC for design and installation of photovoltaic electrical generation systems at Water Management Miss Lake Facility. The memo, the alternative section of that agenda memo, which was attachment number 1, was slightly revised to provide specificity on the impact of not approving the contract. And finally, agenda item number 24, which is proposed updates to connection, lift station review, and flow monitoring fees. This item is being referred back to the Water Management Department. That is all I have for you this evening.
Thank you, City Manager Page. I now turn to Attorney Rayburg.
Thank you, Mayor O'Neill. Good evening, members of the City Council. The City Attorney's Office has no priority items tonight.
Thank you, Attorney Rayburg. I turn now to our City Clerk for her priority items.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city clerk's office also has no priority items tonight.
All righty. Okay, we will move to the next order of business, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of items that the council has previously considered in a work session. All items on the consent agenda may be approved by a single vote of the council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda by a council member or a member of the public, and those items will be considered separately at the end of the meeting tonight. We're going to kind of go out of order a little bit, but I'll explain after the reading of the consent agenda. The first item is approval of City Council minutes. Item number 2, participatory budgeting steering committee appointments. Item 3, the Durham Historic Preservation Commission mayoral appointment. Item 4 is the Durham City County Environmental Affairs Board appointment, and I do see Ms. Faye Calhoun, who was appointed to the Durham Historic Preservation Commission, in the audience. Thank you for your service, ma'am. This is her second appointment to that board, so thank you for that. The next item will be item 5, which is the Citizens Advisory Committee appointment. Item 6, the Mayor's Council for Women appointment. Number 7, Durham Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission appointment. 8, Boards, Committees, Commissions, and Task Force Fiscal Year 2022 to 2023 Annual Attendance Reports. Item 9, Contract Agreement with El Centro Hispano to provide salary and operating support. Number 10, Contract Agreement with the Museum of Durham History to provide educational and cultural services. 11, the contract with the Life Center of Durham, Inc. for the purchase of STEM equipment. Item 12, the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant Offer 3-37-0056-062-2023 Grant 62. Number 13 is the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program Grant Offer 3-37-0056-063 2023 Grant 63. Item 14 is the interlocal agreement with Durham County for joint funding of the Low Income Homeowners Relief Program, LIHRP. Item 15 is a construction contract with Eagle Solar and Light LLC for design and installation of photovoltaic electrical generation systems at Water Management Miss Lake facility. Item 16 is a condemnation action to obtain 2 easements at 4,000 Fayetteville Street. We have one speaker for that item, so it will be pulled, and we will actually hear from Mr. McLean out of order in order to accommodate him before our SCAD discussion. Item 17, construction services contract with Riggs Harold Builders, Inc. for the Edison Johnson Recreation Center renovation project. Item 18, athletic booking agent contract. Item 19, amendment number 2 to professional services contract with Ramey Kemp Associates for Woodcroft Parkway Extension, TIP number U-5823. Item 21 is amendment number 4 for Falcon Engineering contract number 16451 for the construction material testing and special inspections of the Miss Lake facility expansion. Item 21, the interlocal agreement for the Western Intake Partnership Real Estate. 22, Amendment number 1 to the professional services contract with Hazen and Sawyer PC for the Williams Water Treatment Plant Basin Improvements Project. Item 23, professional services contract with Ravtelis Financial Consultants, Inc. for the Western Intake Partnership Governance Amendment number 1. Item 24, proposed updates to connection, lift station review, and flow monitoring fees, and that has been referred back to water management. Under our general business agenda, as a public hearing, we have item 26, which is the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment, simplifying codes for affordable development. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item number 16.
So move.
Second.
Right. It's been moved by Councilman Williams, seconded by Councilwoman Freeman. Madam Clerk, if you will open the vote. If you will close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. As I indicated, we normally would have the pulled item or pulled items. They are scheduled to be heard according to our regular agenda at the end of all of the other items on our agenda. However, we only have one pulled item with one speaker, so if you would allow me to move Mr. Jerry McLean up at this time and ask him if he would come and have his say before the council. Mr. McLean, you will have 3 minutes to speak, sir.
How's everybody doing this evening? I talked to you guys about a couple of weeks ago, and my attitude was a little bit shaky. I apologize for that, but I don't apologize for what I was talking about. I live at 4000 Fayetteville Street, and before you vote on that eminent domain, you should talk to me. No one has talked to me. All you've done is taken the city's word for it, salaried workers. The city made a mistake, an honest mistake. The city has tried to cover that mistake up. The city has built on property that does not belong to them. They know it. They knew it when they did it. All I expect out of this is to be made whole. I have expenses incurred fighting this. I want my expenses back. I want to be able to build a wall or a fence around my property to stop the erosion and the damage that cars are doing. I've had 10 cars on that property, 6 in 4 years. The last one was in June. I have no front porch. I cannot get a permit to rebuild. Why not? $141 spent, turned down 4 times. Aluminum Company of North Carolina was turned down for a permit. They saw no reason for a storage permit, a storage shed to be built on the property. How did a front porch get to be a storage shed? Send one of your representatives to talk to me. Somebody you trust, let them see the property. And if you want to vote for eminent domain, go ahead. I'll see you in court. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. McLean.
Everybody.
All right, we will now turn to our general business agenda, and we have one item on the agenda for tonight for public hearing, and that's item number 26, the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment, simplifying codes for affordable development. And we will hear from our staff.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm Bo Dobrinsky, Assistant Director with the City County Planning Department. I'd like to certify for the record that all notification requirements for this item have been met. This text amendment, case TC 2200001, simplifying codes for affordable development, is a privately initiated text amendment that proposes to amend various provisions of the Unified Development Ordinance in order to allow additional flexibility in siting and design, predominantly for infill housing and small-scale commercial developments. The applicant team is here to present specifics of these amendments here tonight. The Planning Commission recommended denial on December 13th, 2022, by a vote of 6-6. This item was first scheduled for you all's consideration March 20th. It was continued to May 1st, but was then referred back to staff to be rescheduled for consideration after the July break. Over the course of those intervening summer months, planning staff hosted a series of meetings between the applicant team and representatives from the Inter-Neighborhood Council, INC. The purpose of these meetings was for the applicants to hear and better understand the specific concerns from INC, and for the INC representatives to hear and better understand the intent of the applicants. As a result of these meetings, the applicant team made 6 changes to their proposal, which are detailed in your staff report. In addition to your staff report, your agenda materials contain an updated staff analysis, attachment A, that is organized with related ordinance provisions grouped by topic in order to facilitate consideration of the proposed amendments. This item has not yet been scheduled for consideration by the Board of County Commissioners. Pending the outcome tonight, staff will schedule the appropriate next available date for the public hearing on these amendments. A modification of the effective date may be required if, depending on the outcome of tonight. 2 motions are required for this item. One to approve an ordinance to amend the UDO, and the second is to approve the corresponding consistency statement. Both staff and the applicant are here and available to answer questions.
Thank you so much. You have heard the report from staff, and I will now declare this public hearing to be open, and we will first entertain any questions or comments from council. Just to let everybody know, I have about 23 cards up here so far. If you're in chambers and you would like to speak, please go ahead and sign up. We will take those first, and then we will go to our participants who are joining us via the internet. So turn to my left, council.
I have a question for, and I don't know if this is a proper time to ask this question, so my colleagues will tell me, but I have a question for Attorney Rayburn regarding the SCAD proposal. And so since April, there's been like emails back and forth about a particular council member may need to recuse themselves because of some, I guess, connection to that particular husband and being on the planning stages of the SCAD proposal. This was back in April. I just got another email about that also. Residents are asking for a recusal. Based on your response, it was that you have not been charged by anybody on this council to actually do an investigation to see if that recusal should be done. And so I'm just concerned. I have a fiduciary responsibility to find out what is going on. I just also feel that there are just certain rules and regulations that kind of are geared to some people and not geared to others in terms of how we deal with these things. And so I just need to know, again, I'm getting these emails. I just don't know, what the procedure should be, and is there a policy or procedure around this person being able to recuse themselves from the vote tonight based on these emails that we're getting and based on what you said in the email?
Thank you for your question, Councilmember. So recusal of an elected official is governed by North Carolina general statute. It's not necessarily governed by email inquiry or even my response. And I have reiterated a number of times, including in the email that I sent in April, which was largely reproduced a few days ago to the same inquirer, that the governing statute, 160D 109, which is a land use statute, sets the basis for recusal for an elected official when they are challenged. Now, an elected official has a duty to recuse if they lawfully meet certain criteria. They recuse themselves from votes where they have a clear conflict of interest. They are the applicant on a project. If someone that they're related to is the applicant on a project, they have a duty to recuse. Another criteria is if there is a reasonable likelihood that the council's vote on an application will result in a direct, substantial, material financial benefit to that elected official. As you indicated, I was asked by a member of the community whether my office had investigated anything. As we have discussed in other contexts, my office does not investigate allegations of behavior or interest conflicts on the part of the council. That is not in the council procedures. That is not in my job description. We don't have any sort of infrastructure to make that happen at the city attorney's office. But what I have done consistently in every instance is communicated with the entire council about the issue. So I've copied the entire council on my communications, and that has remained consistent. There has not been a difference in how I've handled different situations in that respect. And so with respect to the inquiry that came in the other day, I was again asked, which I have taken to understand to be an objection to a council member participating in this item. What the statute provides, that 160D 109 that I previously mentioned in subsection E, is that if there is an objection to the council member's participation, then the council member needs to address it, state whether they do have some sort of financial benefit that is likely to remit to them from a vote on the item, and they are going to recuse, or if that is not true, if that's not a true statement, there's going to be a financial benefit to the council member, then the council member has a duty to exercise their public official duties and vote. So have I answered your question?
You have, it's just that, again, it's just been a couple of emails, so I just wanted clarity. But also, there has been documentation of that particular person's husband in those emails. And so you have documentation saying that they were part of the, I guess, I'm not sure, beginning discussions with it. So it's just really confusing to me how certain things are handled with one particular city council member and other things are handled with another city council member, including myself. So I just wanted to put it on the record that these emails have been back and forth. There is documentation with this person's husband in the planning, I think, because I don't know, these are emails that were sent to us. And again, no one on this council has even discussed it. No one has brought it up. And so I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Councilwoman Caballero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since my colleague has mentioned the emails and it's a public record, she is discussing me. My understanding is that unless it is a very narrow definition of the statute, and I do not have a conflict of interest. I will not benefit directly as defined by the state statute, and actually the folks who have been emailing are incorrect. My husband has not participated in anything SCAD related. And my understanding is from speaking with the city attorney that I have no requirement to recuse myself.
Right, any other comments before we turn to our public speakers? Okay. I will call 5 at a time. You will get your 3 minutes tonight. We will not shorten that, as this is a very important issue to a lot of people, and so we want to pay full attention to what each of you have to say. We'll start off with Mr. Stephen Neal, followed by Ms. Benita Green, Rafiq Zaidi. I always pronounce your name wrong. I'm sorry. Ms. Jackie Wagstaff and Mr. Steve Tola. That will be our first 5 speakers for tonight. Mr. Neal, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Stephen Neal, Durham resident. 3 quick comments. For tonight, I'll leave the discussion about the specific sections in the massive 55-page text amendment to those that understand them best. I've spent hours on this thing and can't believe that anyone in the council credibly understands it well enough to vote it all in at once. Since we were the people that started the emails with Councilman Caballero, I'll make a comment there. Thank you for answering and offering to recuse yourself. One comment that if it passes and Mr. Barone's involvement leads to a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for the councilor, I believe the public should expect an ethics inquiry will be conducted, but we'll put a pin to that for the future. In addition, there looks to be a pattern of questionable practices here in regard to development, and now even a member of the planning department seems to be getting in on it. I expect more information will surface even at a higher clip during the election and beyond on that. And then lastly, I'd like to thank Councilperson Williams for his comments to the people of Durham at the PAC 2 meeting last week, and also again on Twitter, where he said, and I quote, "We need time to debate this. There's no up or down to SCAD. Let's break this thing apart. Let's take what works for us and deny the rest." This is a sea change from his position on March 20th, where he was among 3 counselors demanding an up and down vote that day, be taken right then. I'm hoping he follows through with his thought tonight. Consistency and credibility are 2 important qualities the public looks for when making their mark next to a candidate's name for public office, especially one as high as mayor. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Green?
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill and members of the dais. My name is Bonita Green, and I am the president of the Interneighborhood Council of Durham. As you all know, we were able to meet with the proponents to discuss some of our concerns around SCAD, and as Mr. I'm going to script your last name, Bo, so I'm just going to say Bo. As Bo said, you know, there were 6 things that they conceded on, but what was not mentioned is that we had a list of 22 items that were the most egregious things that we wanted to be addressed. And the 6 easiest things were addressed. One of the big concerns for me certainly is the PATH program. This program is marketed that it's going to be a vehicle to provide affordable housing in Durham, and it really intently is not. It does not follow the federal guidelines for what affordable housing is and looks like. You know, someone could purchase a home and then turn around and sell it for market value, you know, or you're 5 months in a rental. That is not what affordable housing looks like in Durham. And I'd like to say, because we think of affordable housing in one narrow scope, affordable housing needs to address all of the income levels for the people who work in Durham. Not just people who are coming to Durham, but all of the income levels for everyone who currently lives here now. They need consideration as well. So the Interneighborhood Council of Durham still stands in its original position of asking you not to vote to pass this thing through. Because while it may be good for developers, it's not good for the city of Durham. Thank you.
Mr. Reed? Yes, sir. Followed by Ms. Bell. Steve?
Time ain't started yet. I can't see the clock.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, distinguished City Council body. My name is Rafiq Zaidi. I'm the president of the Black Concerned Citizens and the president of Men and Women with Boots on the Ground, Durham, North Carolina. I reside at 807 South Duke Street. I'm here tonight in opposition to the SCAD proposal. Since the recusal process has just came up and it's in question, I would like for the city attorney to know that the intent and a motive behind a person's engagement with the developers is enough for investigation legally. SCAD. There are members of the Black community and the brown community who believe that the offer of SCAD proposal would have a further future impact on the city's housing landscape, worsening gentrification of already disenfranchised community. Further, we believe that the developers and the supporters such as Jim Anthony Luback, Bob Chapman, and others, the offer of simplifying codes for more affordable housing is hypocritical and is made by those who are trying to deceive the Durham citizens and residents into believing that all of a sudden the gentrifiers are our friends. Furthermore, we believe that such deception, after attempting to falsify using Habitat for Humanity as a co-sponsor, is intended to hoodwink Durham City Council, county commissioners, and the Durham Planning Department. Lastly, we are demanding that every neighborhood upon request should have a meeting in this matter according to the Planning Department's procedure and engagement in that application, which we haven't had. There have been meetings that the black community never even heard about and still don't hear about. But we understand how this thing is going. If residents of color and those struggling with lower incomes don't really benefit from SCAD proposal, it's fair to ask the question, who does? Who does? SCAD proposal, we call it a scam in the community. The actual facts, the obvious and most well-documented answer is big developers and real estate investors. Such proposals as SCAD will create opportunities for real estate developers, and higher property values may encourage real estate and gentrifiers to invest in projects located in areas that they have not historically considered. All across the nation, such proposals are going up in the air. So we ask and we demand that you deny the motions, that you deny the proposal. Election time is coming. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Ms. Wagstaff, but before you come, Mr. Toller, Mr. Warsali, and Mr. Anthony, we have about 25 or 30 cards. So I want to make sure that we give you equal time. So I'm going to pause after Ms. Wagstaff. That'll be 15 minutes. You all can decide how you want to use that first 15 minutes. Then we'll continue on with 5 more, and then you can address right after that. So we can keep track of the balance of time. Ms. Wagstaff. So Mr. Toller, you'll be up next, and you'll have 15 minutes, looks like.
I would have been fine with yielding my time to Mr. Toller. I'd like to see what kind of mess he's going to bring up here tonight. But good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm here in opposition of SCAD. And I know that there's been a lot said, including this long rant from our illustrious Leo Williams today on his Twitter. He said a lot of things in this rant. And one that was most concerning to me is the one that he tries to place a narrative on the people that have been organizing for months to educate the community about SCAD and how it's going to affect us. He wrote, you need to go on his Twitter and you need to look at this stuff, because he put this in earlier today so that he could make all these people look like fools. And he's the one with all of the common sense. So, you know, I'm concerned about that, because you seem to have a lot to say about things about this community and about who comes down here and who speaks. Now, for you, Pastor, we don't have 300,000 people that can fit in this room, or their fire marshal's gonna put us out, and you always do these sermons about these people don't speak for the 300,000 in Durham. Well, I think there are members of this community in here today that do speak for the 300,000 people in Durham, and they're saying they don't want this SCAD. They're telling you to vote it down. But we know that, and I'll say what I said publicly, and I've said it on all of my social media, that I, Ms. Wagstaff alone, believe that all 4 of y'all are on the take. That's just my belief. Now, you can take that however you want, but that's what I believe. And it's not a court in Durham that would side with you if you tried to sue me, because I believe that. I believe the sun is out right now. That's my belief. But I think that we have elected officials here that promised certain things when they were running. And now these same people are ignoring the people that helped them get there. Leo, you said something to PAC 2 last week that was a total lie, because we have it on film. You said that you and the mayor voted to halt this process some months ago. That was not true. You, Jillian, and Javier were the ones that was beating the drums to go ahead and vote on this. It was the pastor that helped us out this time to halt this thing. And then you have one of the SCAD people that said he has 4 votes, and I believe it. I believe he has 4 votes. But if you vote like this tonight, this city has thousands of votes that's going to take you out. So remember that.
Okay, Mr. Toller, you would have, trying to keep this time, about 15 minutes if you'd like to.
I just need,
But we want to make sure that everybody gets the amount of time that they need. So
yes, ma'am.
if you just state your name, we're going to try to do our best to keep up with it.
I just need 2 minutes, okay? The public process, my name is Steve Toller. I'm a citizen. I've been a citizen since 1977. The public process this amendment has been through has been significant. It passed the JCCPC unanimously 7-0 in April 22. Throughout the 223-day engagement window, hundreds of citizens sincerely participated through dozens of civic groups, 100+ meetings, probably more than any text amendment in Durham history. And the bond referendums that I've done countywide pales in comparison to what the community outreach has been here. 28 citizens wrote portions of this amendment. Applicants have been ready, willing, and able to be heard since December 14th, 2020. The concern that I had as a citizen is that neither the planning department nor the proponents heard any specific comments on this until May of 2023. The second point I want to make is the tenor of public comments. It's been very disappointing to me as a citizen. Attempts at character assassination, claims of nefarious intent, the list goes on. And the sad part of all this is you all have experienced this personally and this bad behavior yourselves, often from some of the same people. And one more point I'd like to say as a business person is that as business people who depend on honesty and trust, we can't have a cavalier attitude about telling the truth. Because we get one chance to do so, our actions have consequences that we are very aware of and impact our livelihoods. Thank you for supporting the text amendment and for your service to Durham in spite of some of the challenges. Thank you.
Mr. John, W-A-R-A, I always mispronounce, Wasar, followed by Mr. Anthony, and you would have that time remaining in order, and you'll be able to come back because it's the proponents.
I don't need a whole lot of time. I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take as much time as you need, sir.
First of all, I appreciate all your service and sticking with this. I'm John Warasilla. I'm an architect in downtown Durham. I've been an early investor and developer in the neighborhood around Rigsby and East Chapel Hill, probably starting 20 years ago when it was frankly pretty much an abandoned city at that point. I worked as the architect for the Golden Belt revitalization, which was a probably 3 or 4 year project, which I think has really come off quite well. And most recently, I've been involved in revitalizing the buildings at South Driver Street, the old Garland Millwork site. And we started with that because those were classic historic buildings. They, to me, were the culture and the nugget in that neighborhood. We've come to have tenants in those buildings who are Black-owned businesses of that neighborhood, very entrepreneurial folks. We've worked very closely with them to bring them online. Mike D's Barbecue opened about a month ago, home run, selling out every night. Congress has opened. Proximity Brewing will be in the same neighborhood. Claymakers is there. NCCU is renting a warehouse there. So you can see that neighborhood coming back. And the reason I bring that up is I frankly did not follow this text amendment very closely, but as I looked into it, I could see what it could do in that neighborhood. What it enables someone to do in that neighborhood is mix commercial buildings with residential. And candidly, the residential buildings that'll get built in that neighborhood are not going to be like the downtown 5-story apartments that you're seeing, because they just don't work that way, right? That neighborhood is going to be very much about surface parking, 2- and 3-story kind of buildings, if we can do it, and a very much mixed-use neighborhood that is on transit lines, all walkable, and I think being built from the ground up with people from that neighborhood. It's been one of the most rewarding things I've been involved in Durham for 20 years, and I think the text amendment, at least the aspects of it that would work for us in that neighborhood, can transform it. Otherwise, we get stuck with a series of empty lots in that neighborhood that I really don't know what the future of those will be. I don't know how you put those back together, but using some of the tools in the text amendment, I can see where we can do something profoundly different that can transform that into a very much, mixed-use urban neighborhood, walkable, near transit lines, and a very vibrant place built, as I said, from the ground up with people from that neighborhood. So I'm a proponent of that element of it. I would love to see that work. And if you can help us do that, that's terrific. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. Mr. Jim Anthony.
I'd like to invite Bob Chapman to come join me. My name is Jim Anthony, and I am the applicant for this text amendment. And it breaks my heart to see how divisive this has become in the community. Durham deserves better. Bob and I have been working in Durham, in my case, 30 years. Bob's 50. And we've never done anything but help this community. I don't think there's anyone in this room who's ever looked at any of our projects who would say that was a mistake or that damaged anybody in this community. So it hurts us to hear the kind of conversation that's going on around this text amendment. Durham deserves a better conversation. I was grateful when the group was convened in the planning offices to discuss exactly what was contained in this document, and we had some great dialogue. And I want to thank the team who came and sat with us. Subsequently, we've had more conversation with the planning department staff about what they can support and what they're not ready to support. Some of those things are exactly what you have and would hear from this community gathered here tonight. So I would like to formally request a continuance of this hearing because there are things that we now want to change about this document and allow for continued engagement with the community for those who feel like they have been left out of the process or do not understand the document. We want to talk about it. We also want to make clear what those things are. No one knows what they are yet, but I can just tell you, as of very recent conversations that have evolved, that things like the elimination of parking requirements, that's controversial. You'll hear about that from folks here, and Durham's not ready for that. Raleigh was, but Durham's not. We've had discussions about the measuring of the height of buildings. We need to eliminate the confusion around that. Bonita mentioned the fact that she's not a fan of the path section of the amendment, which is designed to accommodate and facilitate affordable housing construction, but it doesn't have the right terms in it. It needs to be addressed. So I'd like to formally request a 90-day continuance of this public hearing and vote until we've had an opportunity to further engage with those who are interested in doing so. Thank you very much. Any questions before I sit down?
Confirm with our attorney to see.
Thank you.
So we may discuss that as the council. I would offer my take on that. Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for coming today. This has generated, I know, an enormous amount of public interest, which we are glad of. Durham has a very involved citizenry when it comes to matters like this, as you can see by the folks who are here and who are on the internet. But we also have a wealth of knowledge that I do not believe that we have tapped into for something that's significant as this. As you all know, we're going to consider the comprehensive plan on August 31st. So that will be work well. We will be moving towards the UDO. Also, though, I would offer to my colleagues the formation of a task force, a different kind of task force, though, because I do think that we have institutions around that can offer some objective kind of take on this process. For instance, you have the Institute of Government, who is over at Chapel Hill. You also have North Carolina Central University and Duke University. Both have undergrad degree programs and graduate level programs that could probably help us to formulate some objectivity. I think that's part of the missing discourse of the conversation, is that there is not an objective voice. You either have the community that's feeling one side or the other, and you have the applicants. So where's that objective voice that we both could listen to? So we have formed task force before that take as long as a year. I don't know why we would rush something so important to so many people, and especially not utilize the resources that we have at hand in our local universities. So my suggestion would be that we consider the formation of a task force with those objective voices, and also with the applicants and community members, have them to sit at the table together and take it apart. The one thing that I've learned over the years is not everybody's going to read that document, and not everybody can with understanding. It's one thing to read it, it's another thing to read it with understanding. And it behooves us to make sure that our standard in the courtroom was that you have to be able to speak in a language that a third grader could understand, right? I don't know if we'll be able to get there with this type of a document, but at least we could put it where it's in a context where your average citizen who's not a planner, not a lawyer, not a developer, can understand it and be able to articulate it back. So that would be my suggestion, is not just look at the shorter window. I don't know what 90 days will get you right now, but I do think that we need to put an objective voice in that space. Councilwoman Freeman and everybody else.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that's a great idea. I would just like to note there's an equity aspect to this, and just understanding it's not just that the community may not understand. I think often professionals don't understand what community is experiencing. And so I would like to add to that, that there needs to be a way in which the experts in the community are also highlighted, just acknowledging that many folks who've experienced multiple generations of displacement should have a centralized voice in this. And that's not by race, that's mainly by socioeconomics. But I do want to make sure that if that is a hindrance, that there's some way to fund them being involved in the process, and making sure that there's funding tied to whatever moves forward, because I think a task force is a great way to at least get the dialogue going and to nail down what if scenarios around some of the changes that may be proposed out of the SCAD, out of those amendments, and then also what would actually make housing affordable here in Durham. So thank you. That's all.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to support the applicant's recommendation for a 90-day delay if that's what folks think they need to continue to do the kind of community engagement and work that will make this proposal stronger. I can support that happening. I want to highlight the work of our planning department, however, as a neutral and experienced body that has done a large amount of work on evaluating the SCAD proposals and has gone through every single proposal, given us a detailed analysis of each proposal and then their recommendation as to whether that proposal should be passed or not. I think it would be valuable for us, for council members and for residents to look at that analysis, because what you will see is that a lot of the provisions that are being proposed to move forward by the planning department actually correct errors and problems that they have previously identified in the UDO and create additional opportunities that people have been asking for in the city that don't currently exist in the UDO. And a number of them are simple corrections to make things easier to understand. For example, we are not adding extra feet of height to a building. We are changing where we measure the top of the building from the midpoint of the roof to the top, which is something that's more intuitive for people to understand. And so a lot of the things that have been proposed have been misinterpreted through I would say, both good faith and bad faith actors, and that misinformation has been spread throughout the community in ways that do not actually reflect like the words on the page when you look at the proposals. There are some proposals in here that the planning staff do not recommend that we move forward, that they recommend that we hold until the UDO rewrite, and I would support following their guidance on that as well. I also have concerns about the affordable housing path program. I think that the affordability periods are far too short for any meaningful affordable housing to be created by that program, and would rather also delay, I would like to delay that piece of the puzzle for longer if necessary, so that we can figure out that affordability piece. But in my opinion, the majority of the staff recommended changes in the SCAD proposal, I feel comfortable doing a 90-day delay and allowing the developer to come back, but I do not think that we need an entire task force to evaluate those provisions. A task force might be useful for the path provisions, for the affordability pieces, or other pieces around affordability that are harder to figure out, but for the technical changes that are being proposed in the UDO, I think that it would be completely reasonable to move those forward after the 90-day recommended delay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Jose Hyman, and then we're going to ask our planning director if she would speak to this after you see. We're back at council discussion for a second on their continuance. So, and then we'll come back, if you don't mind. Let us finish on the dais, and then the city staff, and then we'll hear from you all as to what you all are thinking about the proposals. Just trying to keep a little order so I can keep it straight in my head, okay? That's all. Not trying to overlook anybody. On the dais, then to the staff, then back to the public. All right.
So thank you. I'll be very short. So, I mean, my recommendation, I do agree with your recommendation for a task force, but I also agree with the recommendation that a lot of our residents have asked for, which is for this to be postponed after our review of the comprehensive plan. And then with the review of the comprehensive plan, there's going to be some changes to the UDO. So I would prefer for us to table this even to after the comprehensive plan is adopted, and then the new changes will come into effect with the UDO. So the 90-day situation, I'm like kind of totally against that. But I would prefer, again, if we have to move forward, I'm good with the task force, but if not, I would like us to go on what a lot of the residents have asked for, which is for us to wait to after the comprehensive plan to even address this. And also people have asked for to wait for a new council to be able to vote on this. So that's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Sean?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you on this. Staff can certainly accommodate a 90-day continuance. I do want to share a little bit more information about the timeline for a full UDO rewrite. If this were to go much further than that time frame, it would start to run into an overlap and likely compete with the work that we're trying to do to overhaul the whole ordinance. We have both a technical consultant that is beginning work right now on it, and we are in the process of hiring an engagement consultant to specifically bring in our entire community and do engagement on the full rewrite in a way that I hope to make this city and county proud. That will be very different, but similar to how we've engaged on the comprehensive plan. So I would say that in terms of a task force dealing with some of these more significant issues, those issues and that will be happening in a broad scale for the whole rewrite through that engagement effort for that. So just wanted to let you all know a bit of my concern about pulling this out too long and competing with the UDO rewrite. I think that would be a little bit messy.
To my right? Any comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for the staff. I want to thank my colleagues for their excellent comments on this matter. I have no problem with the 90 days as well. And Madam Mayor, if you think that a task force would be a good thing, I certainly don't oppose that either. I do want to say that for me, this text amendment is not as exotic as some people have made it to be. I also want to say this is the third time tonight. This is the third time a particular resident has openly questioned the intelligence and comprehension of this largely black council. And I've heard this resident in other contexts, speaking to audiences, not do that. This is the third time. Many of us up here have voted on text amendments for years. We read these documents, we do our homework, and we come and cast votes. So we have read the document multiple times. We have at our access a planning department that is the envy of their profession, that is constantly lauded and looked to around the state and around the country. Don't take my word for it, Google it. Our planning staff is among the best in the business. They are not on the take. They work passionately. They work every day for the good of this city. So I want to add my kudos to them as well in the way that they've redacted this document, in the work that they've done and how they've put it in bite-sized pieces. But as I said last time, if folk feel they need more time, I'm always going to err on the side of giving folk more time. But I also want to say something that needs to be said as well. I've spoken to hundreds, literally hundreds, maybe thousands of people about this over the years that SCAD has been in our public square. It is clear to me that there are a lot of people who haven't read this document. It's obvious. What we have read are some prepackaged talking points from interests on both sides of this matter. There are folk who don't want changes to their neighborhoods, NIMBYists, who have managed to enlist some prominent voices in our city to do their work. There are developers on the other side as well who need to be questioned. But I will say that my vote will not be based, I can't govern based upon caricatures of entire professions. All developers are bad. All lawyers are bad. All people who want alternative to policing are bad. We can't govern based upon caricatures, and there have been a lot of caricatures and personal attacks thrown around about people. So I'm looking forward to a debate that's actually substantive, that has more light rather than heat. So 90 days is fine for me, but this has been going on for a couple of years now. This isn't new. I also want to strongly push back against tying a land use decision or a text amendment to an election. You're getting to very, very touchy business with that. Well, when President Obama wanted to nominate Merrick Garland, with plenty of time left on his administration, you had folks saying, well, we need to have an election first. So we've got about 5 or 6 months left on this council. Is there anything else we shouldn't be doing until the next council? We have a job to do. and we were elected by people to do our job. And I would just remind us that tying land use decisions and zoning decisions to electoral machinations is problematic. It's problematic. We have a job to do. So, and for those, what's interesting to me is that if you don't, for those who say they don't understand it, then how do you know a new council would be better for you? Either you understand it or you don't understand it. Now, if you want a new council for something that you don't understand, the implication is that you really do understand it, and you want a council shop to get perhaps a better outcome. Maybe this is a council that will give you the outcome you want once you understand it. So I don't understand how not understanding it is tied to a particular council. So 90 days for me is fine, Madam Mayor. I'm not against the task force as well, but I do want to call out that there are forces at work in this city that have enlisted folk that have prepackaged talking points that in many cases don't closely resemble what's in this document. Not even close. Some of them do, some of them do not. So I look forward to 90 days in the debate, and I look forward, Madam Mayor, to the work of the task force if we go that way. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think Councilwoman Caballero, you had some comments?
Yeah, thank you. I'm fine with the 90-day delay as well. I really appreciate staff's very detailed analysis. I found the document to be pretty easy to read. And the outcome with the guidance, some things were, you know, this may be a good idea. The UDO rewrite will give us an opportunity to really measure, in a way, whether it's a success or it's something we shouldn't do. And I think basically we had a window for piloting some of these things and a real clear kind of fire stop if there were things that folks or weren't landing the way that maybe they were anticipated to land. But I'm fine with the 90 days. I think I appreciate Director Young saying very clearly that a task force or a deeper analysis of this is going to run into the community engagement we are already planning to do with the UDO rewrite. I think that all of this is a clear example of how desperately we need a UDO rewrite. And I think also it's really important that community understands that at the end of the day, everyone in this room operates when we think about housing in the market. I think that there are lots of things that we could do that we don't have the authority to do that would limit the profiteering of housing, including, you know, I think that there would be some pretty interesting reaction if we had the power, which we don't, to limit how much profit you could make when you sold your home, because that's something that we don't control at all. Folks sell land, they sell their homes, they make money off of it, and that continuously increases the cost of housing in Durham. And that is not a space we plan at all. We don't have the authority, but I have a feeling that many people in this room would have a different outcome and a different sentiment if we were really stepping in to how much profit you could make as an individual with the purchase of your land or your home. So I find that to be interesting. But I'm fine with a 90-day delay. I look forward to continuing this conversation. Again, I really want to thank staff because I know it's been a lot for y'all. This has been something that folks have had an opportunity to talk about. I think there was lots of community meetings. I'm pretty sure INC had meetings last summer around these amendments. So I think that there actually has been a lot of opportunity for folks to comment. I think they just don't like it, and that's fine. It's fine not to like something. I think it's not okay to mischaracterize, to exaggerate, and to spread false information because you don't like something. Just say you don't like it. It's fine to do that. We all do that. But I think we need to be more truthful about what we're actually talking about and what folks are really asking for. Thank you.
Freeman.
I just wanted to know if we were going to get back to the public comment, that was all.
Sorry.
Just if we were going to get back to public comment.
So we have a motion on the floor. Well, Councilman Williams.
Thank you. I just to share a few comments. First, I had a question for staff. Just a quick question. There were about 120-something line items for this document.
Something like that.
How many of those were okay with your department?
I don't have a specific number off the top of my head. I'd have to look at it, but the vast majority, remember that a lot of those are very small changes just for consistency. They're not necessarily new and different content, which accounts for a lot of the reason why you see in the analysis document, staff recommends, because it's all kind of related for the same concept.
Thank you. I'll join my colleagues in saying that I will be okay with the 90-day delay. But there are a lot of things that are wrong with this process, and we haven't even gotten to the substance. And I want to be really, really, really clear about this, because it's really easy to be characterized as being disrespectful or lacking compassion. And I know that this stuff is really complex. It can be really scary. But at what point, do we try and rebuild this public trust? And I think that is the role that engagement, public engagement, community engagement has to play. There also, everybody has the right to say and do whatever they want. This is America. You have your First Amendment rights. But it can't be considered rude and disrespectful or misleading when you actually call out misleading information or someone who's intentionally trying to mislead folks. I have no problem at all, personally and professionally. I have no problem with folks disagreeing. But there has to be a basis of fact. And I am still looking for the why on why we're supportive or the why we are not for it. And as I stated earlier, there's been some great organizing around why we should be against it as, some community members. And that's perfectly fine. That's okay. But at the same time, from some of the folks that have been really against this, I've yet to receive a call or direct correspondence, and I want to talk to you because I did what I was supposed to do, and that was read and analyze and go deep into this document so that we can have an honest conversation. But we have not had a lot of honest conversations community-wide. And that is where we have to get to that. We really do. This document was delayed early on. It was delayed at the Planning Commission, and it failed in a tie. It passed JCCPC. It was delayed when it got to council. And it almost feels as though we're trying to deny by delaying. I have no issue with the substance of this document because that's what I was looking forward to discussing tonight, the substance. But we have yet to get to that because the process has been obstructed. And that is what I take issue with. And we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be able to dialogue even on difficult situations. But if the process is always going to be what's attacked, we're not going to be able to govern. We're not going to be able to govern. So if you're standing in this room tonight and you're for this or against it, that is perfectly fine. That's what I thought we were here to do tonight. But it's been a long time getting here, and we're about to delay it again. So to the applicant, if this is your prerogative, it's your prerogative. It sits a little uncomfortable with me because I'm ready to get to the substance. If we're going to have a task force, I hope that we'll focus on the areas that the planning, our objective or professionals have actually said it needs more work. I hope that we can focus on that. But I hope that everyone in this room goes and read this document in depth. And when you have questions, you'll reach out and we can talk about it. Because I'm almost certain some of the things that you found to be really frustrating, you realize that it actually addresses it. And some of the things you'll realize, some of the folks that got, some of you hyped up about it, you're like, wait a minute, that's what you upset about? Very small changes. So I hope that we'll be able to get back to honest dialogue. I hope that we can rebuild public trust. And I hope that we can stop mischaracterizing people. We were elected to do a job. And I hope that we can get back to trust in that. And if you feel like you can do it better, that's why we have this democratic process for you to step in and do it as well. And that is as simple as it gets. So I'm not going to get down into the mud of the back and forth and mischaracterizing people. But I do invite you to have an honest conversation directly, even with me. If you want to talk to me, I am open to have that conversation. And I mean every word of that. But please, do not void conversation with any source and then go and characterize it in an distasteful way. Thank you.
Thank you all, colleagues. It's a procedural question as to whether we move to allow the continuance or not for the 90 days. I am still of the opinion that one of the ways we build public trust, a lot of trust has been broken, I think, in this process, and sometimes that's what democracy looks like. It can be really messy. And I'm glad that so many people are interested enough in how our city is growing that they show up here tonight. Some of them show up every night, and some folk are on the internet. So that's a good thing. That's a great thing, I think, for Durham. But the one way I think that we have to rebuild public trust is to make sure that there's some objectivity built into this process, which I think is what people have lost a little bit. They've lost, listening to some of the comments, they've lost some faith in our planning department. They've lost some faith in some of us up here, all of us up here at some point in time. They've lost some support, some confidence in the application process itself, with our nonprofits. It's just been a lot going on. So I think that we need to have some guidance as to what happens in that 90-day period, because that's why we continued it last time, was to have public dialogue. And you see where we are now. So, Mr. Anthony, what does that 90-day, what will that do? What can you tell this community about the involvement going forth? Because people want answers. They want to be able to feel like that they are part of the process. You got a whole room full of people here and on the internet as well who are concerned, and they want to be involved. So 90 days just for 90 days, or 90 days with some guidance around it. And my suggestion is a task force. It doesn't have to be formal, but the more objective professional voices that you have in that space, I think will help to build some of that community support back up and begin to mend some of the bridges that have come about as a result of that. So can you give us an idea of what you're thinking about for that 90-day continuance, how that will work?
Yes, thank you, Mayor O'Neill. I will go back to a comment by Jillian earlier, which was that a task force would be a very useful tool. It's, I think, pretty comparable to what our planning director was suggesting with public engagement and it being facilitated by a neutral third party. around the particularly controversial aspects of this document. And that is why I asked for this, so that we could have that dialogue around those items. But the vast majority of it, and it is an incredibly boring read, as those of you who have attempted it know, because it is doing tiny little technical corrections, that's what I'd like to see us pass in 90 days. That which the planning department can endorse and you as council members can endorse and the public can support. So that's my goal.
So 90 days is the November 20th date. Could I ask if I could get at least 5 volunteers from the public who would agree to sit with you to kind of develop what happens over these 90 days, so that they come back, you all come back with some type of plan for us at the next meeting, so we'll have some idea of what you're gonna do over the next 90 days. The first 5 people in the audience to stand, let's see, raise a hand. Right, stand up for me. I need 5 volunteers from the audience. They're our opponents. Yes, just one question, Mr. Chase.
One question. That the planning department be a part and available at these meetings so the people that want to come.
That's a city manager. I'll get her to answer that if she'll have her staff available. I see about 6 or 7, so yeah. Over there, okay. Those people, that are willing to do this, and I see we have more than that, if you would give your information to our clerk now, and then we will pass that over to Mr. Anthony, and if you all could come back and have an outline of what these 90 days would entail for me. Those people who have stood to say that they will be willing to sit at the table. And I know, Mr. Chavis, you're gonna wanna sit as well, so please give your information to our clerk and we'll pass that on.
Madam Mayor, I would actually like to know if folks came in as proponents or opponents, because we were actually not setting up this process to be successful.
Well, I think they're gonna bring a lot of
Okay.
they have about
Okay.
10 people, so I know that they have a bunch of folk that they can bring in. I just want to give them a definite number of how many they have on that side so we can get 10 proponents. So that you have an even number, right?
Mayor O'Neill, I wonder if it would be possible for the folks who are signing up to share what neighborhood they live in so that we could get some diversity of the neighborhoods represented.
That would be good. If you all will include that information, ma'am, if you will go over there, and then you will know how many, I'm taking that everybody that's signing up are opponents. So then you will be able to put your, right, I'm not trying to,
Did you put your neighborhood?
What I'm proposing is to get the volunteers, because I can't ask people to volunteer because you're on one side or another. I would ask that you indicate what you do, what side you're on. Mr. Anthony,
I think that would be helpful.
knows who is a proponent at this time, for the most part. So I'm sure he can balance that, and I will look forward for him balancing that. So we would just ask that you make sure that it's balanced. City manager, you had a question about whether your staff could be available. I'll let you answer that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, the city county planning department and their resources have been, involved in analysis throughout the whole time, making recommendations. We serve the community. So whenever we are asked to bring professional expertise into a setting, we make every effort to do that. We have asked that, the time and the topic and the agenda topics be made available so that we can be efficient. But we are not going to say we're not going to participate in community meetings that involve the work that we do.
So I'm going to ask council if we can just give a thumbs up. I think we have pretty much an agreement that we'll do 90 days to the November 20th. Do we need to formally vote on that? All right. So Mr. Anthony, if you would make sure that you know that it's evenly balanced, and if there's a way that we can help from the council level in terms of getting some of our universities involved in that process to give you some objective voices and some students that might want to learn a little bit, we're certainly able to do that. We would ask that you come back 2 weeks from today and just give us an overview of what the next 90 days will look like, what we can look forward to on November 20th. So that date, 2 weeks from today, is what, for all of those who are going to be participating, we want you to come to, is our work session easier to come or our city council meeting? What's the easier one? Probably the council meeting.
I think to maximize public participation, it's probably a council meeting.
Okay. 2 weeks from tonight is 8/21? September 18th. I will not be here, Mayor, wait a minute.
September 8th, 2 weeks.
Okay,
So the next
September
meeting is September
8th. So if you could come back with a plan for us on what community engagement looks like, I think we can come together and have a great product at the end of all of this for us to vote on. Okay? Sir, I'm not sure that I'm hearing you, but the process, as I understand it from the attorney, is that we have a motion from the applicant on the floor that we have to consider before we move forth. So that is what we have taken and you've heard them, all of us are in agreement that a 90-day continuance would be fine with the council. In the interim, what we would ask you to do, I've only asked folk to sign up, but you're more than welcome to join these conversations. I just wanted to make sure that we leave out of here tonight with a group of people who can come back and give us a plan for what happens on the 90 days. Now, how you participate in that, I'll leave it up to you adults to figure that out, but I want to leave out of here knowing that I can talk to a group of people who can tell me what the plan is for the next 90 days in 2 weeks. Just that simple. You still have your opportunity to come back and speak. That motion is granted by a thumbs up vote. Let everybody see it again to November 20th. We will come back and they will give us an outline of that plan on September the 8th. With that being said, are there any other matters that will claim our attention for tonight? We do have one matter that we need to vote on. That was our pulled item, item number 16. I'm ready to entertain a motion. At the hearing. Ma'am, hold, I can't really hear you with your mask on, and I would need for you to come to the podium so that the people in the audience to hear you. So if you could let me deal with this piece of business though before we forget it. Now, I was about to entertain a motion. I want to go ahead and entertain that motion before we forget that. A motion for item
Your Honor, I believe that's item 16.
16.
Yes, ma'am. I'll offer the motion.
To adopt the resolution authorizing condemnations of portions of 4,000 Fayetteville Street for the ST 264 Fayetteville Street Road Improvement Project, moved by Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Madam Clerk, if you will open the vote. If you will close the vote and report out.
The motion passes 6-1 with Councilmember Freeman voting no.
All right. Yes, ma'am, if you will state your name and then I can hear your question, and so can everybody else.
My name is Mimi Kessler, and I live in Durham. My address is on record. A lot of us came here tonight to have our 2 or 3 minutes to say to you all what we feel from our hearts, rather than be mischaracterized by others. And I don't hear in your voice and your plan that we're going to be able to talk to you tonight.
Oh, yeah, yes, you will.
Okay.
Yes, you will, but not tonight. What, not tonight. Not tonight.
You know, some people really have to make a giant effort to get here. And you had 90 days before. And we came here to talk to you.
All right. The motion has been passed, and it passed unanimously. It has no. The hearing is still continued. The hearing is continued, so you will have the opportunity to speak. Now, he asked for the motion. I think the last time that it was continued was for council motion. It was not continued for an applicant motion. I believe this is the first time the applicant has asked for a motion to continue. Is that correct?
In this matter, yes. In this matter, yes.
In this matter, most applicants, if you would tell me.
Madam Mayor, I do have a question. The 8th of September is a Friday.
Kim gave me that date. Can you check and see, Ms. Young, has the applicant asked for continuance in this matter before? It's the 5th. 9/5.
I don't believe the applicant has specifically asked for a continuance. I would have to go back and check the record. I have to admit my memory from that many months ago, I don't remember exactly.
Okay, so this will be the first time that the applicant has asked for a motion to continue. I think that will require due process that we allow that they have one continuance. You'll be able to be heard on the 20th. I am sorry that that is an inconvenience, but they would have the right to ask the council for one continuance. That is not out of the ordinary for an applicant to ask for a continuance of a matter, and it would be granted. So we're not going to treat them any differently.
Madam Mayor, but for those of us who wish to speak, it could be characterized as not a hearing, and instead allow the citizens who wish to still speak to have 2 or 3 minutes just for public comment, and it may not be part of the record of the hearing.
Madam Mayor, point of order. I want to fully associate myself with your decision. This is a public hearing. It's on television. We posted it as such. The council has just now made a decision to hold over that public hearing, and I don't want us to stray as an institution into the theater that it's not, and entertain. These folk have clearly come for a public hearing. We have now, with the full force and imprimatur of our city and council, made a decision, legally binding, and I fully support your decision to abide by that. I'm even troubled by some of this back and forth, even straying into the area of still having a de facto public hearing on this matter. So I want to fully associate myself with your decision, Your Honor. It's the right decision. Thank you.
I'm not going to treat them differently than anyone else who comes before this council and asks for one continuance. I'm not going to do that. They have been granted that continuance. You, as a matter of course, we've seen it done plenty of times. We have even gone so far as to outline a process for them to come back to report to us, which I know is unusual, to ask an applicant to come back with a process as to what will happen during the phase of that continuance. If you cannot come back, I understand that it is a sacrifice, but there also has to be a balancing too, and we have to make sure that we're doing things that we do in a normal course of business. If you cannot come back, you are free to write us, and we will read those. I know I read almost all of my emails as much as I can, including today. So, but we have agreed to allow this applicant to have one continuance to November 20th. Are there any other matters that will come before this council this evening? If not, thank you all for coming. We will stand adjourned, and we will come back, we will stand adjourned at 8:38 on August the 21st, 2023. I just asked for that. Didn't I just say other matters?
Been doing it forever. You've been running forever. In Reverend Middleton, what's going on?